Happy birthday, PlayStation Portal! It's been 1 year since Sony gave us the thing nobody really asked for, but to be honest, is pretty awesome all the same. As I share my thoughts, head to the comments and let me know if you have a PlayStation Portal and what your thoughts are on it. And of course, you're going to want to hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss any videos on PlayStation, Nintendo, retro games, Final Fantasy, or any of my live streams. Let's hit it! First off, let's address the elephant in the room. As I just mentioned, nobody asked for the PlayStation Portal. Everyone was hoping for a successor to the PlayStation Vita, a true independent Sony handheld, but instead we got a device that can do one thing and one thing only: stream your PS5. And let's be real, if I were Sony, I wouldn't want to go directly against the Nintendo Switch either, so it isn't a completely daft decision in my opinion. Okay, so acknowledging the fact that the Portal is not exactly the best case scenario, I'm going to share my thoughts on it for what it actually is, as well as how it performs, some of the improvements that have been made to it since launch, and whether or not I think it's worth it for you to buy going into its second year. Let's start with the build itself. I bought mine pretty close to launch, and in short, it definitely holds up. There's no denying it. The Portal is a chunky boy. But Sony is known for its high standard of quality, and the Portal is no exception. Although it looks kinda weird, it feels great in your hands, and with a solid piece of hard plastic going all the way across the back, it feels as strong and sturdy 365 days later as the day I bought it. Maybe I'm just used to the jiggly, uncomfortable feeling of playing my aging Switch in handheld mode, but this thing just feels like a premium item that's built to last. Its size sometimes discouraged me from traveling with it, depending on where I was going, but it's not too big to make bringing it along unreasonable. This thing won't be going into your pocket anytime soon, but a backpack or suitcase is no problem at all. All the great features of the DualSense controller, like the adaptive triggers, the incredible haptic feedback, and even the impressively bright light bar, are present, and the novelty of them still hasn't worn off. It's just so cool to see and feel them on a handheld device. One thing I will say though is I don't think I'll ever totally get used to the capture, options, and home buttons being separated by the screen. It's not really a problem, but I have found myself occasionally hitting that home button by mistake when trying to snap a quick screenshot. I also have to address the touchpad, or rather the absence thereof. It's replicated by tapping the right or left edge of the screen twice, and it's usually not an issue, but I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a few times I needed to frantically go to town on it to get it to activate while I was concentrating on gameplay. Let's move on to the experience itself, and specifically the UI. This has been something I've been most pleased with, to be honest. From the start, I thought PlayStation Portal was a pretty cool name, but Sony actually went the extra mile to make it more than just a catchy title, which I was not expecting. Unlike Sony's usual cold, business-like approach to their UI, this has an uncharacteristic, almost Nintendo-like charm to it. It's called the Portal because when you turn on the device, you literally see a Doctor Strange-style portal on the screen, waiting to be your window into another world. Once you connect to your PS5, the Portal enlarges to engulf the screen, and it feels like you're jumping through time and space into your PlayStation. This feels especially cool when you do it away from home. When you're not connected, the Portal will literally just display a hollow portal, and the only other functionality it has is a simple menu where you can adjust a few settings, set up a Wi-Fi network, etc. This thing really is just a hollow streaming device. The Portal does have a headphone jack, which is nice, but as I'm sure you've heard, it does not allow Bluetooth headphones to connect. Not even Sony's very own Pulse 3D headphones that the PS5 launched with. No, the only wireless headphones you can use with it are the new, grossly overpriced, official Sony PlayStation Explorer earbuds, which is just downright insulting to consumers. I mean, these things cost as much as the Portal itself. For me personally, this isn't really a problem because I play my Portal largely at home, which I'll talk about more in a few minutes. But if this is a deal breaker for you, I totally understand. Note that you can technically use your Pulse headphones or any other wireless headphones if you're near your actual PS5, because remember, the Portal is just streaming the screen to the device. So if you're local, those are good to go just as they would be if you were playing on the TV. But if you're on the road, you're out of luck. This is by far the biggest deliberate flaw to the Portal. Okay, now to the big question. Does it perform well or poorly? The answer is yes. Over the past year, I've tried to use the Portal in a lot of different environments. A few examples would include my own home, on my Google Fiber Wi-Fi network, crappy hotels in Vegas, ritzy hotels in downtown Chicago, and my little brother's small apartment with standard Comcast internet. I can honestly say it performs generally pretty darn well, but there is for sure an element of what feels like rolling the dice and hoping for the best. Some of the above places worked flawlessly, while others didn't work at all. And which place was which is not exactly what you'd expect. One of the biggest complaints at launch was that the Portal was only usable if you were connected to a Wi-Fi network, for obvious reasons. But this was greatly handicapped because due to the Portal not having an onboard internet browser, any public network that required a password, like most hotels, was a no-go. Luckily, Sony addressed this with an update which displays a QR code on the screen, so you can do the login work from your phone. It's a clever little workaround, but both times I tried it, that would be in the ghetto Vegas hotel and the super nice Chicago one, I couldn't get it to work. I can't exactly say why, and to be fair, I didn't try super hard to investigate, but suffice it to say, so far for me, it is not really a seamless process. To further illustrate the randomness is the situation of being at home and at my brother's apartment. Not being public networks, they both work great, of course, running at pretty consistent 1080p 60 frames per second under normal circumstances, even when my wife and kids were streaming on multiple devices at once. Here and there, it will stutter or freeze for a few seconds before snapping back into action, but it's really not that frequent, at least not nearly enough to cause much frustration. At one point, my kid's Switch was downloading a new game though, and during that, the Portal would sometimes have little fits where it would drop to an abysmal resolution and lag a bit more than normal, so this thing isn't invincible. Now you might be thinking, dang, if all that is the case on a Google Fiber network, any standard Wi-Fi will be horrible. And that's what I thought, and that's why it's so baffling. On my brother's standard Comcast Wi-Fi, I was able to connect and probably get the best performance I've ever seen on it to date. So much so that I was able to play a few rounds of Fortnite with zero hiccups. I was pretty shocked and confused, to be honest. I'm not really a techie guy, so all I can really say for performance is that excluding public networks, which are still up in the air, it works very well about 90 to 95% of the time. Oh, and one quick note on battery. A lot of people make a huge deal about battery life, but it's never really been a problem for me. You get about what you'd expect. It's not great, but it's not bad either. I think on average I've gotten about 4 hours out of it, with screen brightness on the higher end and volume up pretty loud. Which game I'm playing hasn't seemed to make much of a difference either, be it something like Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, which heavily uses the DualSense features, or something less taxing like a PS1 classic. I'm not really knowledgeable about how that kind of stuff works, but I'd imagine it's because the device is just streaming and has no onboard processing going on. But either way, I haven't noticed much of a difference, and that leads me to my last point of discussion. What's the point, and should you buy one? The answer to both of these questions is greatly dependent on your specific circumstances. So let me explain. For me, the Portal is totally worth it for kind of two specific reasons. Number one, I happen to be in a place where I have a lot of expendable income and can throw money around on toys. But two, I have a wife and 3 children, and we are always on devices like streaming services and game systems. The PlayStation Portal essentially turns my PS5 into a Switch. If I'm playing and one of my kids needs the TV, I can just pause my game, power on the Portal, and in minutes, both me and my kid are on our ways without even having to fiddle with the PS5. It's fantastic. On the note of family, the Portal also comes in handy when I want to play a game I don't necessarily want my kids to be watching, like my recent playthrough of Silent Hill 2 Remake, for example. Or, like Stellar Blade. I also work from home, and it's real easy to just have at my desk to use on like breaks and lunch and such. So for me, the Portal is awesome. I honestly don't even travel with it that much. But flip that situation. Let's say you're a single college student living alone on campus and on a tight budget. If I'm being honest, in that circumstance, I don't see any reason you'd need this device at all. So, unlike something like the Nintendo Switch, I'd say for one person, this is an absolutely essential and really useful device. But for the next person, it could be nothing more than a plastic waste of money gathering dust on your shelf. I've heard people making cases for both arguments, and I think everyone is correct. It just depends on who you are. Despite this, the Portal has performed surprisingly well though, according to Sony's reports. It's priced at $199.99, $200, which isn't cheap, but I honestly think it's pretty fair for the tech you're getting, again, if you have a use for it. As for myself, I'm a cheapskate and managed to pick mine up practically new for $120 from a private seller on the rich end of town. Sucka! But I'd say that's pretty much it. That's your 1-year review from your non-techie average Joe. Overall, I'm really happy with my Portal, and if I can get back out there and successfully play on a public network, I'll be even happier. But what about you? Did this video knock you off the fence one way or another? If you already have one, I'd love to hear about your experiences with it. So with that, I will see you in the comments. Talk to you next time. I want to also give a shout out to fans of the channel. That would be who we lovingly call Crazy Name, SL Rhodes, and Kevin Frith. Thank you guys for supporting, and if you would like to become a fan of the channel, simply navigate to the homepage and hit that join button.